Awesome. Well, I am excited to dig into your team. Obviously, your first year at UC Santa Barbara, and you returned 4 starters from last year's squad, right? How rare and cool is that to have as a first-year head coach there?
Yeah, I've been telling everybody, I feel really lucky. I'm probably one of the few coaches in the country that returned 11 players from last year's roster, which is really cool. To have, as a new first time head coach here, to have so many returners that are kind of showing me the lay of Santa Barbara a little bit. I've been able to kind of lean on them a little bit too, right? We're all kind of building this thing together. But to really have so many returners, 6 seniors actually, that know this place and the ins and outs of it. It's been really comforting for me to come into a situation where the culture's been great. I think Coach Hendrickson has done a great job, and the coaches before her, like Coach French, they've done a great job of building the Santa Barbara culture and what it means to be a Gaucho women's basketball player. So I feel really fortunate about that. This is a great group of young women, and excited about what the season holds.
All right, Coach, I got 2 questions for you. First of all, shout out to Quinn, Mason, and Skylar. Big time shout out. Your 3 children. Hey, first question to 2, are you getting any sleep? Because, you take on a new program, you got 3 kids. How does all that fit?
It's funny. I have twins, right? I have Quinn, I have my twins. I have 3 sets of twins on my team right now. So my players, I have brother, sister, and 2 sisters. So we're like the twin family for sure. No, sleep, that's debatable. But, the boxes are still packed in the garage, and we figured by this time, if we're not digging into them, we probably don't need them. So sleep will be a byproduct, something maybe that'll happen in the summer or spring next year. But we have literally come in guns blazing. Our heads have started to spin a little bit slower. But we're getting the lay of the land. This is home for me, so it hasn't been too much of a whirlwind, but just excited to be back home.
You can sleep in late April if you want. So my second question with that, and you said this is your home. I have to expect that you probably grew up going to the Thunderdome, watching Mark French, coaches teams, and you understand this culture of Santa Barbara. And while you're not necessarily as tall as Mark French, who I believe checked in at about a 6'10", you still got this thing about Santa Barbara where this is your community. Can you help us kind of understand that?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up just down the road, about 30 minutes from here in Ventura, but I grew up coming to camps here, and I played games. I won the Tournament of Champions, used to be in Santa Barbara when I was in high school. My senior year, we won the Santa Barbara Tournament of Champions here. So I have a lot of history in the Thunderdome. But I remember the heydays of Coach French and everything that he did with his Sweet 16 teams and being able to cheer those guys on. Besides the Thunderdome, I played in Rob Gym, which was the old gym before the Thunderdome. I go way, way, way back here. My dad was born here. I have a lot of family in Santa Barbara. And this is not a sell for me. This is home. This is where I really, I would want my kids to go to school at UCSB. I love it here. This has been my dream job since I first started coaching at 23 years old. So to say that things have come full circle for me, I feel really humbled and honored to be the coach at UC Santa Barbara, and just really looking forward to what the future holds and getting it back to what Coach French originally had going on years ago. Back to those Sweet 16s and back to those NCAA tournaments.
Well, we talked about how much you returned in your first season, right? But I want to talk about someone who you brought in from the transfer portal, Martha Peach from Oregon State. What do you like about her? What kind of role is she going to have on this team? What can we expect to see from her this year?
Marta is a stud. I think everyone will be really excited about the way that Marta plays. One thing that she's really bringing to us is people know, watching the Big West and watching UC Santa Barbara, is how much Alyssa Marin has meant to this program as their point guard. But Alyssa's a scorer, and what we look to bring in with Marta is to really move Alyssa off the ball. So, that way she's not giving it up and not getting it back. Now having her and Marta playing side by side together is really going to turn Alyssa into more of a dynamic scorer and really open up some things from some of our other guys. But Marta is a tenacious dog. She really can get after it, and she shoots the lights out of the ball. So I'm really excited about Marta. She's been a gem and just a great kid and a great leader to bring into our program in our first year.
So you got Marin, you got Skylar Burke, you got Anya Choice, and then you talked about Peach, who I had the pleasure of calling a bunch of her games at Oregon State. But Coach, you were an assistant coach at one point at San Diego State under Beth Burns, who is now the associate at USC and has had a ton of success. I played for Beth Burns, and she is all about defense. And I know you to be all about defense. And I want to kind of understand, if you could help Talia and me kind of understand where that defense, how that defense is going to be utilized this year to try to keep yourself atop the pace of the Big West.
Yeah, defense wins championships, right? That's what Coach would say, and that's the background you grew up in. TB is I think when you're a new coach and you're an up and coming program, the one thing you can control is the defensive end of the floor. And I'll take a page out of Joe Pasternack's book too. He's a defensive guy. Santa Barbara men's and women's basketball, I think, will be known for that end of the floor for years to come. That's where we're really going to get after it. That's where we're going to hang our hats on, and that's where you're going to see the toughness of Santa Barbara and the way that we'll defend. We know we're probably not going to be an elite scoring offensive team this year, but for now, we're going to be a team that's going to look to hold teams in the 50s and low 60s, and if we can do that, we're going to win a lot of basketball games this season.
So you come in, you got all these pieces to work with, right? You got pretty much everyone returning from the starters last year. Who impressed you the most outside of those four, maybe, that might surprise us, that we might not know too much about just yet?
Yeah, I think one in particular is going to be Zoe Border. Zoe's been here for a couple years from Oregon. I think she's kind of been one of those kids that's really been on the brink a little bit. And she's going to really be an X factor in what we do. I think her and Skylar Burke, two young players that are kind of up and coming, they'll kind of, I think, take the reins over from Anya Choice and Alyssa Marin this next year. But Zoe and Sky have really kind of come into their own. I think they've been a little bit under the radar in the Big West, and we're really allowing them to kind of, do what they do offensively. I think people are going to be really surprised at the talent level of these two players. We also returned Laurel Rockwood, who's a big post player for UC Santa Barbara last year, and she's basically anchoring our defense in the back, and we're excited about Laurel and those guys. So we have a tough group coming back, and we have a couple kids coming back from ACL. Kayla and Olivia Bradley are both coming back from ACL, and so we'll actually have some sneak ups that are coming in like December, January, that are going to be pretty big players for us this year.
Hey, Coach, you've got a lot of support in this community here, and you've got donors. I mean, you're out almost every day having breakfast, if not lunch, with somebody in the community. But you want to bring players in when you're recruiting, and you want them to be able to see a donor or maybe an alumnus or an alumna sitting next to you who turns and says, hey, hey, Coach, whatever. And you're trying to build this, but you don't want to forget about the parents during this recruiting process. And you haven't had to necessarily go out and do a ton of recruiting because of your deep roster, but talk about the future of that and how this community plays into that in terms of really helping you.
Yeah, that's where I think there's no place like Santa Barbara in the community here. I don't know that people really understand how much women's basketball is loved here, how much Coach French is loved here. I don't know that people truly understand, if you're not from here, the culture that was created here 15, 20 years ago. And that's been something that, we're trying to bring back, that environment that was once here, right? We are trying to go through this. We're out on the town, we're with recruits, and we have alumni, we have boosters, and we're having dinner, and someone will stop by and be like, hey, I'm a women's basketball fan, I'm a season ticket holder. And that's been so neat for the recruits of our program to see. And parents love it. And like I said, I'm homegrown, I'm from here. This has been a place that I've told parents, like, this is a place I would send my own children to. And I hope my kids do go to school here. I hope we stay here a really long time. But that's the culture we're trying to create, is that family atmosphere, and really trying to bring, the community of Santa Barbara. We're trying to bring women's basketball back to where it was, and really generate that excitement back in the Thunderdome of the basketball that I was watched growing up as a kid. And the recruits, we know our recruits and parents are extremely excited about what we're building here. And we think we're onto something pretty special.
as you're trying to build this program back up, right, and you're trying to get these players invested, and I'm sure they already are, what's the mindset that you're trying to instill in them in your first season as head coach here?
Yeah, we're trying to fight every night. We're trying to defend and fight. We know we're picked 7th. And that's great feel for a coach, right? That's great to be able to go into games with a little bit of a chip on our shoulder this year. I think we're better than that. I believe our team is going to believe that they're better than that. This was a team that lost 8 of their last 10 last year by 2 or 3 points. I mean, this is a team that's on the verge of being, one of those top echelon teams in the Big West. And so that's something that we're really looking forward to. Is you're going to see us every night. We're going to compete like you can't imagine. So I think that's one thing you're going to know. You're going to know from UC Santa Barbara basketball is that every night we're going to be out there battling those top teams. We have a lot of respect for those coaches and those teams that have been at the top of the Big West. But we're coming.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Coach. We really appreciate it, and looking forward to see what you do here in your first season at the helm. So thanks so much again.
Great. Good meeting you, Talia. Go get on TV. We're rooting for you.
All right. Good to see you, Coach.
And this is a guy who's won almost 150 games in his first 7 years as Gauchos head coach. Joe, how are you, man?
Thanks, guys, for having me.
So, all right, tell me, you were used to winning at the highest level here. Last year, I think you thought you would have a chance to compete for a league title last year, frankly. How tough was it? Because, again, this wasn't probably what you had projected last season, and that taste in your mouth. What's it like going into this year?
Yeah, it was a really tough year for us. And I think coming off of a 27-win team, and then we had high expectations with A.J. Mitchell last year. The injuries we had and inexperience really hurt us. And it was our toughest year in 7 years since we've been here. And I think we've regrouped as a coaching staff and built a team that has depth, can withstand injuries, have experience, getting old and staying old. I think we learned our lesson there. And so really excited about the upcoming year. And I think hopefully we don't have an NBA player on our roster, but I think we have a great group of guys and a lot of depth and experience.
Yeah, Coach, your roster this year is unique because I think you have the most returning players than any team in the Big West. You got 11 returners from what I read, but only 2 starters. Believe you lost 8 guys, including A.J. Mitchell, who you're talking about, NBA draft pick. Johan Traore was an All-Big West player. Yeah, Josh Pierre-Louis, been around for a few years. Team's going to look different for Gaucho fans. I guess I'm curious, what should we expect to see? Similar offense and defensive schemes? Could you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think we'll be similar as in the past. We just don't have that go-to guy like a Ja'Cory McLaughlin or an A.J. Mitchell we've had in the past. Players of the year. We have some really, really good players that have won a lot in college basketball. Stephon Swenson, our point guard, led Stetson to the NCAA tournament, had 20 on UConn in the NCAA tournament. And he'll be our point guard to take AJ's spot. He's actually from Belgium. And so really excited about him as a leader. And then, from an offense and a defensive scheme, will be very similar.
All right, so I know I'm old, Joe. When one of your players, your freshman, I covered his father's recruitment, okay? I don't want to admit it, but Zion Sensley comes in as, I think, like the highest recruited high school kid ever into the program. Father Julian played at Hawaii. What's he going to give you? I mean, how good is this kid?
To tell you how old you are, I was 22 years old at Cal Berkeley when he showed up in the summertime. Julian Sensley was going to Cal, and then he didn't end up staying at Cal. And so I knew him for that long. That's how crazy it is. But Zion Sensley is a great talent, really excited about him. He's long, he's athletic, he can really shoot the ball, and has great genes, obviously, with Julian, and really looking forward. He's been hurt for a lot of the summer, just ankle injury, nothing serious, but he's back now and really making an impact in practice.
It's great. I'm excited to see the team because it seems like you have one of your deeper rosters. I'm curious to see your transfers. Deuce Turner, wasn't he the sixth man of the year in the WCC a year ago? And then Stephen Swenson, who hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but I think he left Stetson as the all-time assist leader. So I'm probably going to take your point guard duties, I'm assuming. Can you just touch on those guys a little bit and how they're all going to blend into this year's program?
Yeah, we're really excited. Stefan, as you said, he was, I think, 18th in the country in assists and led Stetson to their first ever NCAA tournament. Deuce Turner was the sixth man of the year in the WCC, averaged like 16 a game. And the WCC had some monster games against the best of the best in St. Mary's, Gonzaga, Santa Clara. So really excited about those two guards. But Cole Anderson returns, and he's a 3 straight year, 40% three-point shooter, and he's really, really trying to become a complete player, not just a shooter. So he's had a great summer, really excited about him. And then Jason Fontenette was a freshman last year for us. He got a lot of minutes because we had so many injuries, and he's really taken a step from his freshman to his sophomore year. So that on the perimeter is exciting for us. And then the front line is we have Kenny Poto from Wichita State. He's about 6'10", 250 transfer. Again, he's a guy that has so much experience in the American Conference and played about 20 minutes a game, about 8-6 in the American Conference against some really good teams. So experience there. Coach Keat Tong was a kid that played a lot for us 2 years ago, and he's one of the guys that didn't play last year for us that we really missed. He's back. He's 6'10". Evan Scaputo, another big kid that played on our NCAA tournament team. So I think our front line, our fives, we have a ton of depth there and experience, and that's going to be really helpful for us. Max Merle from Stanford is a fifth-year guy, 6'9", can really shoot the ball. Played 2 years ago. He was 45% from three in the Pac-12, led the Pac-12 in three-point field goal percentage. So we're really excited about him. And then Colin Smith is a young man from Vanderbilt. He started on Vanderbilt's team 2 years ago, tore his Achilles 5 games in, and he's just getting back right now to being completely healthy and clear.
Hey, so you're at UC Santa Barbara. You've obviously had a lot of success. I think you've had the most wins in UC Santa Barbara history the last 7 years. I think you've had 2 NCAA tournament appearances the last 4 years. But if I remember right, there was a year, and it's all blending together, there was a year where I think you had a down year for your standards, like last year for you. And then the next year you came back with a vengeance. I believe you won the conference championship. Do you know what I'm talking about? Does that sound right? And do you wonder if this team has some potential?
There was during COVID. There were 5 games canceled because of COVID. I think we were 17-13 or something. We lost in the second round, and then we came back and had a great year. But I think every year is different. I hope that's Richie where you're going with this. I hope you're right.
Yeah.
I think every year is different. A season is a lifetime, and so hopefully we're built to last. Injuries you just can't control. And we had so many last year. AJ Mitchell never practiced with us. He only played in the games because his ankle was so messed up. And we just never could get it together in our practices. Our culture was tough because of that. But I think we have the depth to withstand injuries, and knock on wood, we don't have any injuries. And we have a great group of guys, older guys, that I'm really excited about. They're really hungry to compete, and hopefully that'll make it a great season for us.
Great.
Joe, tell me if you like this idea or not, but you've come from the high majors. Now you've obviously been in a mid. My take on this through the portal is if a high poaches somebody from a mid or low major, there should be some sort of, and I'm not a soccer guy, but like a transfer fee, I guess is what it's called in soccer, where you guys would get back 25, 50 grand, something to at least, if you guys evaluate and develop a guy, I don't know, you should be compensated. You should be rewarded for it. And I think that would close the gap a little bit, because I think the gap is only going to grow here, to be honest, especially when when the fifth-year guys are done, I think the gap may grow a little bit because I think the freshmen, the high-level freshmen, right now it's like the top 10 freshmen have a huge impact. But, top 50 freshmen, they used to have this huge impact. They haven't over the last couple of years because of the COVID fifth-year guys. Have you heard that idea, and do you like it? I assume you like it.
I've never heard that idea ever. It's an unbelievable idea. Is that being talked about? Because that would be amazing.
No, I don't think so. I mean, again, I've just kind of brought it up lately to a bunch of people, and the high majors probably don't love it, but they have money. They should be okay with it because, again, most of them were in your shoes at some point or another, and they should understand that it is awfully difficult. You bring in a kid like Traore last year, right? You bring him in, and obviously he came from Auburn, didn't have a great year. You get him for a year. You start to get his confidence back, I'm sure. Teach him, get some reps for him. And then you lose him to a program like SMU that's got a ton of money right now. And you can't compete with that. Like, what do you do? You should get something, whether it's a high school kid you evaluated or a kid like him.
That would be an awesome idea, Jeff. I hope they make you the commissioner.
Hey, that's not going to happen anytime soon. We know that. I got too many things in my closet, Joe, to be commissioner.
Let's go in that closet and check it out.
No, trust me. My daughter's listening right now. We don't need to talk about my grades at Arizona or some of the other things that I did in Tucson that Joe probably heard about back when he was an assistant coach. And Joe, you gotta no, don't tell anybody. All right, don't tell anybody. I was a 4.0 student.
Call me
4.0.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Joe, we appreciate it, man. Great catching up.
Thanks, guys, for having me. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Joe. There you have it. Santa Barbara head coach Joe Pasternack.